Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, we are discussing another banned book in our series, Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. This book is amazing. I think most of you probably know Margaret Atwood from The Handmaid's Tale. Let me just give you a little bit of information about Oryx and Crake. It is a 2003 novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood. She has described the novel as speculative fiction and adventure romance, rather than pure science fiction, because it does not deal with things we can't yet do or begin to do, yet goes beyond the amount of realism she associates with the novel form. It focuses on a lone character called Snowman who finds himself in a bleak situation with only creatures called Crakers to keep him company. The reader learns of his past as a boy called Jimmy and of genetic experimentation and pharmaceutical engineering that occurred under the purview of Jimmy's peer, Glenn Crake. All right. And so one of the reasons why this book has been banned is because of sexual content. I also believe that it was banned because it's subversive, right? It's talking about all of these developments and scientific experiments and these things that we're developing, aren't they great, and blah blah blah. But in this book, she's looking at it as, we might want to think about this critically and think about the effect down the line, right?
AI.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, AI for sure.
Right.
Sure. And it's
Having
funny,
to do with the ethics involved in all of this creation.
in AI, in genetic engineering,
Mhm.
in basically in scientific creativity. It was funny. I was reading this book and I was like, oh my God, this was written so long ago. It's only 2003. That's not that long ago.
2003, but eerily enough, the premise of the novel is a pandemic
Yes.
written before our pandemic.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's no way I could have read this in 2020 or 2021 or 2022. It would have freaked me the fuck out. I think it, I mean, I would have, but it would have given me intense anxiety and nightmares.
I'm trying to think the year that I read it the first time. It must have been like 2022 or something like that.
Okay.
My mom was still alive and
Okay.
she was home, and I was reading it, and then I realized it was part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
So I went right out and bought the other two books because I knew I was going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which I did. And I get kind of confused talking about it because it's hard for me to remember what was in the first one versus the other ones, because there is a lot of going back and forth in the future, the future to the past, to when Jimmy Snowman was a young man,
Right.
and then how he met Glenn, and how they became friends, and also how they met Oryx. Is that how you say her name?
Oryx, yeah.
Oryx. Okay.
Or that's how I'm saying it. If somebody out there knows that it's said differently,
I think that's right.
Let us know. Yeah.
Okay, you say that it got banned because of the sexual content, and then also because of the dystopian type of ethics that are involved.
Yeah, but that last part is my take. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. I say it's because there's a lot of vegetarianism in the book. And it gets, in the other two, it gets even more into the vegetarianism because they have to create food.
Right.
There's a food shortage, and so
because they fucked up all the animals,
right,
and the shit that they created got out and then ate off the natural food supply.
I mean, aren't we kind of playing with those Franken foods a little bit right now?
We are. I mean, think about it. Beyond Burger.
I like Beyond Burger.
Well, sure, but it's and this is what it talks about a little bit in the book, or at least hints at, is it's a really slippery slope.
It is. That's the thing.
Where do you go? Hey, science is great. Scientific exploration and creativity and knowledge, that's great. to, oh shit, we've gone too far.
I think this is the perfect time to talk about this book because we have people in our government right now who are making decisions that don't seem to have, number one, an ethical code, but number two, they also don't seem to have any
ability to think critically and long term.
I'm not sure if it's yes, but more like empathy. They
Yeah,
seem to
yeah.
have a lack of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and our character who opposes Snowman Jimmy in
Mm-hmm.
the book, Crake,
Mm-hmm.
he seems to have no
Oh yeah, he has no empathy.
he seems to have no empathy. He's able to do all sorts of things, number one, without really thinking about the consequences,
Mm-hmm.
doing things because he thinks they should be done,
Right.
creating things because he thinks they should be created,
Mm-hmm.
and not able to have and see, I think this Craig has no empathy for the people who are going to be affected, the
Mm-hmm.
animals who are going to be affected, his friends, his family. He had no empathy for his own family,
Mm-hmm. The planet.
the planet, etc. He just thought he knew what should be done. Does this
Yeah.
remind anybody of anybody?
Mm-hmm.
I
He
mean,
knows what's best.
I'll just do
I'll just
without
do all these things, whether you
without
want me to or not, because
I'll
this is for
just
your
take
protection.
care of you. Yeah, yes, I will take care of you. And I won't
Shit.
consult any sort of expert on anything. In fact, I'll get rid of all the
Right,
experts.
because I'm so smart and I know everything. Everybody should listen to me.
Yeah,
Ugh.
this is funny, but it's actually not funny.
Yeah, not at all.
It's
Not at
not
all.
it's not funny because not everybody is really born with a sense of empathy. Some people learn empathy skills and some people don't learn empathy skills.
Yeah.
And ethics are not generally taught. I remember when I was going to Western Michigan in the 1990s to get my
Mm-hmm.
degree, I was studying business. About halfway through my degree, they decided they should add some business ethics classes.
Mm-hmm.
There were no ethics classes involved in business at Western before that. We have a society that has all different types of religions, all different types of ideologies, all different types of thoughts on what's right and what's wrong. We have laws, we have some of our laws that maybe being signed right now are laws that I don't particularly think are ethical.
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. And they're not thinking about or even giving a shit about the the consequences and where this is going to lead down the road. All they're thinking
Right,
about is right now. Right
right,
now. That's
right.
it. There's a point in the book where, let's see, wow, maybe I should get my reading glasses out. On page 243, there's a passage where Jimmy is living with his then girlfriend and her friends, and her friends are talking about, well, it basically they're just talking. So let me read this part. I think this is very pointed. I think it's relevant. It says, maybe there weren't any solutions. Human society, they claimed, was a sort of monster, its main byproducts being corpses and rubble. It never learned. It made the same cretinous mistakes over and over, trading short term gain for long term pain.
Oh my God. It was actually just what I was talking about with my niece this weekend. I was
Mm,
telling her that when we were making our vision boards for
mm-hmm,
2025, we had a stack of old National Geographics,
mm-hmm,
and there were so many political stories in them that I kept reading the stories.
mm-hmm,
And I kept saying, we're living this right now. We've already lived this. We're living this
mm-hmm,
right now. And she said to me, politics, fashion, the world is this endless circle of the
mm-hmm.
same thing again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah, because we don't
Why?
learn it. We don't learn our history, so we just repeat it. The more that books are banned, the more that we are likely to repeat these cycles over and over and over. And honestly, I think I don't know how anybody could read this book and not be changed by
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if I was
it.
changed. How were you changed by reading it?
just the peek inside the mind of somebody, Crake, of somebody who is obviously brilliant, but no empathy whatsoever.
Right.
Literally only had one friend other than Oryx, but she came along much later. To hear or to read how he thinks about society and what's quote unquote best for society in his mind
Right.
and how to make that happen. How he literally has no respect for people who live outside the different compounds, the plebe lands, which is basically like, I think it's from 1984, where people are called uh the working class poor people are called plebes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, all the dystopian stuff is just tied together. This is great. It's just to see it from, and yes, this is fiction, but I don't think it's
Kinda.
far off. I don't think it's far off. I think we know enough about people like this that to see what it's like in a society that doesn't put any guardrails on them, this isn't outside the realm of impossibility.
Well, I mean, in some ways, he did have guardrails, but he was extremely intelligent and he kept finding loopholes through the guardrails,
Mhm.
different ways to access things that he really didn't have access to as a young boy,
Right.
and getting into different systems and different systems. And then as he got older, all the guardrails were taking off because he was so brilliant, right?
Right. And I think that's what I'm referring to is that
Mhm.
these companies were just so enamored with how much
Money,
money they were gonna make that they didn't
right.
give a shit. They're like, go
Hmm.
with God, young man.
Wonder
Do all
what
these
that
things that are gonna destroy the planet because we want to make money.
is. There anything that that reminds you of?
I don't know. I may need to take a minute to think about it.
Hmm. It's so sad though, really.
Yeah, and I'm not saying making money is evil. It's not, because
No.
having some access to wealth allows you to help your society and to help your fellow man and fellow woman.
Okay, but
But
I'll stand by that money corrupts because how much money do you actually need? And at the end of the day, when your motivation is just to create these products, these things for
mhm.
people to, I don't know, some of the weird products that they made to
Yeah,
like
like chicken nobbins.
I mean, if you ask me, I think chicken's kind of,
Well,
but
sure.
right. By the way, what burger did you we're talking about?
Oh, Beyond
Wonder
Burger.
Beyond Burger is not really Franken food. They are they're making
Mhm,
real like animal flesh, like
mhm.
vegetarian animal. I don't know how it is, but
It
they're
sounds so much like what they were
like
doing at,
they're
what is it?
actually
Rejuvenescence or Organ Inc.
yeah, I mean they're actually there are companies right now that are researching how to make fake meat that's actually meat. You just don't there's no animal, but it's actually meat.
Mhm. I just wonder
It's so
what
gross.
what the long-term effect is going to be on the fake meat, because they're not going to test that shit for like 10 years before they put it out. They gonna put that shit out like
Oh,
tomorrow.
oh, you mean the stuff I'm eating, like the Wonder Burger stuff or whatever? Yeah, because
Well,
honestly, well, I do read ingredients on everything that I
oh,
eat, and
yeah.
basically it's oil.
Mhm,
They're putting lots and lots of oils in this product, so it's
mhm,
like vegetable proteins with
mhm.
lots of oils and lots of chemicals. In my opinion, and this is just me, you want to eat a Whopper, you want to eat a Beyond Burger, they're both gonna kill you. Right?
They're
Like
both gonna kill you.
now, if you really got a nice piece of grass-fed beef and
Mm,
you went out and you grilled it without too much, too I know we're getting way off topic here, but anyway, a Whopper from Burger King or a
right.
Beyond Burger, same fucking thing, just a
Well,
different package.
sure. No, and to be fair, I have eaten my share of fake chicken, like the soy chicken and the soy crumbles and stuff like that. So it's
Soy's
you
a
know,
real food. It's a
right.
bean,
No, I know, but anyway, that's as close as I'm getting to.
but it's processed. Like, okay,
Yes, it is.
processed food. And
Right.
that is really the crux of the food situation in the book, because they've destroyed all their real food sources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're
Yeah.
eating weird ass shit. Nobody's eating an apple.
No.
Right. Because
Yeah. Although when Jimmy went to visit Glenn at Rejuvenescence and they're eating food, he's like, "Yeah, these are real oysters or real mussels or
oh,
whatever."
because those are the elite people.
Right. Right.
So they
Right.
might have some food, but if you're living in plebe land,
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're eating there.
Yeah. It's all processed,
Yeah.
but not even quality processed.
No, you're just
And
trying to
but
survive.
but think about it. That's not too far off
It's not
because even today in certain neighborhoods
food desert.
called food deserts, yeah, there are no grocery stores.
That's right.
So the closest place to get anything close to being groceries is the corner store
Convenience.
or yeah, convenience store or a gas station. If you don't have a car, you need to get on a bus and travel God only knows how long to cart all your food back home. And that takes time and effort.
Okay, but even in our public school system, they ranked the ketchup packets
Mhm.
as a vegetable.
Jesus.
Come on,
Yeah.
private schools, they're getting organic, specialty food,
Yeah.
meats with no antibiotics, no hormones. I know a little bit about this because this used
Mhm.
to be my career.
Yeah.
In the public schools, you're getting your ketchup packet for the day.
God damn.
I know. Okay, we're way off topic. All right, another thing I wanted to say. So those are the two main reasons that we think the book was banned. We know it was
Mhm.
sexual content
Mhm.
because there is a fair amount of sex. It's kind of interesting in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the rumor type thing that I heard in the fandom of the book,
Mhm.
Oryx
Yes.
is transgender.
She could be because think about it. She's basically, and they kind of hit at this,
Uh-huh.
but she's basically telling you what you want to hear. She's telling
It's
you what you want to hear. And
so
she's being what you want her to be.
mm-hmm. It's true. And in the lore and the legend around Oryx is a, what do you call it? Like a deer, some kind of deer. Oryx is
Uh-huh.
an animal. So
Okay.
is Crake. They're both,
Uh-huh.
this might be going past book one. I'm not sure.
No, 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 go ahead.
Those names come from extinct animals in this world.
Oh, yeah,
In
but
this world.
they talk about that because in that game they play when they're kids called Extinctathon, they pick all those names from
Yes.
because the names in the game are extinct animals.
So Oryx in the lore, how do I explain this? There's like a card game about
Uh-huh.
this that's not in the book, that's like out in the world,
Uh-huh.
translates to the king. And they say
Oh.
that Oryx is actually born male,
Uh-huh.
female in the book.
Hmm.
Who knows? But I thought that was
Interesting.
really interesting. There's a lot of lore out there that we have a transgender character who isn't actually identified as transgender, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. Leaves
Yeah.
a whole lot of room for interpretation.
Right.
That's one of the wonderful things about the way that she writes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Margaret Atwood is so incredibly gifted as a writer.
Whew.
I mean, first off, just the ideas that she comes up with, and they're incredibly fleshed out. I mean, completely fleshed out. Then her ability to craft a sentence. In fact, there's a sentence toward the end that I underlined and I actually wrote, "This is a beautiful sentence." Hold on, let
Read
me
it,
try to
read it,
find
read
it.
it. Is it a
Yeah.
giveaway? Is it a giveaway of the
I think so. I don't think so. I just think it's such a beautifully written sentence. Ah, here we go. So on page 357, she writes, "Bird songs beginning. The pre-dawn light is a feathery gray, the air misty. Dew pearls the spider webs. If he were a child, it would seem fresh and new, this ancient magical effect. As it is, he knows it's an illusion. Once the sun's up, all will vanish. Halfway across the grounds, he stops, takes one last backward look at paradise, swelling up out of the foliage like a lost balloon.
Jesus.
What a beautifully, beautifully crafted sentence. There's so much in that passage.
Imagery.
Yeah. As I was looking for this, I found another passage that I starred where Jimmy is talking about, he and Crake are talking, and Jimmy is questioning, like, this is a slippery slope, dude. How far are you going to go? Right. And
Yeah.
so on page 206, Jimmy says, or it's just like kind of his like thought bubble. He was worrying about the chicky knobs and the wolvogs, which were the combined created animals. Why is it he feels some line has been crossed, some boundary transgressed? How much is too much? How far is too far? Those walls and bars are there for a reason, said Crake. Not to keep us out, but to keep them in. Mankind needs barriers in both cases. Them? Nature and God. I thought you didn't believe in God. I don't believe in nature either, said Crake. Damn! Damn. Not only with no empathy, but is so removed from the human experience that he just does not give a fuck.
Okay, that is what we are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
In our world.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been the bitter, hard pill for me to swallow. That's how some people are. My mind doesn't want to believe it. My mind is like, oh no, somewhere in there, there's a person who cares. We just need to nurture them. We need to get them to this point of, but no, some people, maybe it's
are
the
just
way they're
born broken.
Maybe, well, I don't know if they're broken, they're different. Maybe their brain doesn't work. We talk about neurodivergent brains, and I'm not in any way saying that they're neurodivergent. So what I'm
Although
saying,
I think Crake might be on the spectrum.
what I'm saying is we're now starting to understand that everybody's brain doesn't function exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say that we're probably all on that spectrum in to some various degree. And when we say there's a neurotypical brain, I'd probably say there actually isn't such a thing. And we're trying to learn that, to realize that there are people whose brains that function without empathy. They just don't have, I mean, we know serial killers and people we've always psychopaths, we've always been like, well, they have no empathy, that's why they're psychopaths. There are people with no empathy who aren't psychopaths. We have all kinds of different ways that the data filters into our brains, and our brains react to, I could even say that with myself and my brother, the different ways we reacted to the stimuli around us as children.
Right.
As two separate beings with two separate brains, being raised in the same house, we did not react the same to everything. Not even close.
Absolutely. No two people do. Not even twins.
It's fascinating. So why I thought every person somewhere deep down was a kind person. I don't know why I thought that, because in reality, some people are just fucking assholes.
Well, I think because it's hope. At the very core, we are hopeful people.
And I wouldn't even say that Crake is an asshole.
He's very different.
But if Crake was like in the news and I was watching it as a plebe and it was coming up on the TV, I'd be like, he's a fucking asshole. What's he doing? Changing our, like that would be my, but reading his thoughts, I'm like, well, they make sense to him. It's not like he's trying to be an asshole exactly. It's just, it's kind of who he is.
Well, because
and we have no guardrails to stop him.
Yeah. I think what it is, and I've said this before on the show, where I've said science is my religion, because I appreciate science. I appreciate what we can learn. I appreciate how science is a window into the world around us, all of that. But we all know religion in the wrong hands can be incredibly dangerous.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. That's Crake. That's Crake 100%, I think.
And with Trump tells everybody what he's doing. Crake didn't tell people what he was doing.
Right.
I mean, he might have been telling Jimmy a little bit here and there.
Right. But Jimmy wasn't paying attention half the time.
No.
Just like in society, half the time we aren't paying attention because we either have our jobs and our lives, or we're busy, or we're just like, whatever, I ain't listening right now. I don't have the bandwidth.
Jimmy didn't really think it was possible.
And there's a lot that Jimmy didn't understand, because although Jimmy was very smart, he wasn't at the same level as Crake.
Again, their brains, not
the brains, very different. Very different.
Yeah. Jimmy's childhood, with his losing his mother at a young age and then constantly looking for attention, searching for friendship, kind of made him like the ultimate person to be the friend to Crake.
Right. Exactly.
His deep desire and his deep need to connect somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here comes this kid in school who's kind of like a loner. And the two of them just started hanging out together.
Yeah. Well, so in a sense, it's like Jimmy was radicalized, but not all the way. The radicalization was starting, but then Crake was like, and you're in it. And I'm not going to tell how he was in it, even though the book has been out for 20 years. I don't want to give that part away for anybody who wants to read the book, which I highly suggest reading the book.
All three of them.
Yeah.
It gets better. It really, I mean, I liked this book. I was halfway through this book when I bought the trilogy. So that tells you something. Like halfway through, I was like, I'm going to read them all. Just because they were fascinating. And I read them all. And this woman can write a story.
Amazing. She is amazing.
And it's not that far-fetched from what we're currently experiencing.
Exactly. I am continually amazed at how Margaret Atwood's brain works, speaking of brains. And she actually said, I read an article where she said she was working on the book, maybe like 2000, 1999, somewhere around there, in part of 2001. And then 9/11 happened. And she was like, can't write this right now. Can't do it. Just can't. And she put it away for a while because the world was too off its axis at that point. She's like, I can't write a dystopian piece when this is happening literally in the world.
And that totally makes sense. I wonder if having written The Handmaid's Tale and having written this book and many others, I wonder if like when Trump gets elected or when like shit happens, she goes, yep.
Oh yeah.
Saw it coming.
Probably.
Saw it coming.
Probably.
Yep.
Okay, so here's another passage. I underlined so much in this book. I had to stop myself from underlining every single thing. On page 155, Snowman it's kind of like his thought bubble, basically. And he says, watch out for the leaders, Crake used to say. First the leaders and the lead, then the tyrants and the slaves, then the massacres. That's how it's always gone. Damn.
Maybe the key is she studied history. If you know the stories of history, in a way, you're writing the story again with different characters. I mean, not to say that this is like any other story. It's not. It is a tale of man sort of imploding on itself, causing its own pandemic.
Its own demise.
Right.
Basically, which has happened many, 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 many times.
Why? For money, because they wanted products that would save their lives, like make their bodies work longer, but also save their face, make them look younger.
Make it so that they could have lots and lots of sex and not contract any diseases. The Bliss Plus.
Oh yeah, Bliss Plus.
Yeah. Little did people know that in all of these... Okay. I can't give it away.
Can you tell that
part? I'm not going to. People read the book. Just read the book. It's so good.
When you got to that part where you like,
I was, yeah.
Me too. That's why I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
you can't tell that part.
Yeah, there's so many things, and I think it's maybe this is the way that I read, and this is the way that I watch movies. I suspend disbelief, and I am literally like, "I'm in for the ride. I'm here for what you want. I am here for the experience you want me to have, and
Oh,
I am all in."
okay, but even if you didn't suspend, this book is believable.
Yeah, yeah, for
This
sure.
is this is okay. Some of the
Some of it is a little far-fetched,
some
but
of
not
the
by much.
some of the characters, like the Crakers,
Oh, yeah,
they're
yeah.
far-fetched, but are they? Because okay, years ago, I had a
Mhm,
friend whose sister was studying genetics in college. And we
okay.
had a big discussion about, and we have this technology now, about if you're in a lab putting an egg and a sperm together and you have these fertilized eggs,
Mhm,
then you can genetically test these eggs to find out if they're boys or if they're girls.
mhm,
You can find out if they have certain genetic characteristics. I don't know which ones because I'm not a
mhm,
scientist. You can screen for certain defects. You can even, they believe at that time we talked about, they could even screen or change eye color.
mhm.
It isn't all that far fetched to go from that to we have these perfect humans with certain
Yes.
skin and they smell
Mhm.
a certain way,
Yeah.
and like the genetic testing, even in itself, even deciding I want a boy versus a girl or a girl versus a boy instead of leaving it up to God. No, I don't know. I it's this is the core issue of almost everything we talk about. Where is that line?
Yeah,
And who gets to decide?
yeah. And generally, the people who are not in power, who don't have the money, are never allowed to be in power because they never talked about anybody in the plebeians being smart. And they actually even made it seem like it couldn't happen, but they never talk about anybody from the plebeians being smart enough to then transfer in or whatever, become one of in one of the compounds. And the way you're smiling, it makes me think that maybe that happens in one of the other
You
books.
got two more books to go. Because the other thing is when some groups of people are taking over in their power,
Mhm,
in the plebeians, you are going to have resistance.
mhm,
There is going to be movements.
yeah. Oh, I need to read
I
the other
know
book, so
you gotta, and I can't, I don't
ah,
tell you gotta.
alright,
I think the coolest part about, I've only read this book and Handmaid's Tale of Margaret Atwood's, but
okay.
what I love about her writing is that it's so political. It's such a mirror. It's so reminiscent. These things, maybe they're the tiniest bit of far fetched because she is writing fiction, but at the same point,
Yeah. It's like I said at the beginning, it's subversive.
it is subversive and I love her.
Right, and I think honestly, I think that is another reason why people wanna ban this book. They don't want kids to think for themselves and to think critically.
No, you get a kid like Jimmy, Snowman himself,
Mhm,
that reads this book. And then what you said earlier, then it changes the way Jimmy reacts when he meets someone like Crake.
mhm,
But
mhm.
Jimmy, who never read this book, is so searching for love that he falls for Crake.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, not in a love romance,
well,
but
because he's looking for belonging, and there's so many
yeah.
we've talked about this before in so many other episodes, that people are looking for belonging. If they aren't getting it home, they're gonna search for it at school. If they aren't getting it at school, they're gonna search for it somewhere else. And Jimmy is searching for belonging all the time.
And if Jimmy was a real kid, not
Mhm.
part of the book, and he picked up a book like this and he read it and he saw himself and he felt himself, this has the potential to change who he becomes.
Yeah.
This has the potential to change how he reacts in the world.
Mm-hmm. But Jennifer, you don't want them to change how they react in the world, because that means I, as their parent, didn't have any control over what they did.
This one got banned in 2023 from the state of Missouri for sexual content. At the same time in Missouri, they enacted a new state law that prohibits teachers from providing students with sexually explicit material, this book and many others, and any who do face up to 1 year in prison.
God damn it.
In states that are doing this, they're picking certain books, they're bringing them forward, and then they're passing laws that prohibit teachers and educators from recommending, handing out, making this part of curriculum. I mean,
Yeah.
1994 is probably banned at this point.
Oh, absolutely. They did a lot of banning in Utah about this book as well, because it's basically, meh, we don't believe in God. And well, Utah is a very, religious centered state. So people listening to this, read the book and then pass it on to somebody. Pass it on, have somebody listen to this episode, but whatever, get this book into the hands of somebody who maybe their school has banned it, or their school board has banned it. You know what? They're not banning them from having this book at home. Get them this book. So there's, going back to the way that Margaret Atwood can turn a phrase. So there's different words and phrases that she creates in the book. One of them being wage slaves. And I was like, well, that hit hard. Been there. Damn.
Oh, yes, that's
like 99% of the world.
When minimum wage is still, as a country, around, I don't know what they all are, but it's close to $7 an hour. Nobody's even getting paid that. If you go to McDonald's in town here, you're at least getting 11. Oh, wow, $11 an hour. But
big money.
Even at 11, you're starving. But if minimum wage across the entire nation is like $7 an hour,
that's a fucking problem.
Oh, you can't even afford to get to work.
Yeah. God bless you if maybe you were able to get a car, but God help you if something happens to that car. And if you don't live in an area with public transportation, you're screwed.
That's right. So most of us are, like, I'm not complaining. I have never starved a day in my life. I am a blessed person. I am not complaining.
Right.
I am not a multimillionaire. I'll never have that kind of money. I'll never be a wealth hoarder. But most of us are plebes. Because they don't care if we can afford eggs, regardless of what Trump said. They don't care if we have bread and food and diapers for our babies, or if our kids can get to school.
Yeah. And if it's all this pull yourself up by your bootstraps, hustle, have
that's
47 streams of income and work until your body shuts down. It's fucking ridiculous.
And people do what they got to do. I mean, I know people who work around the clock.
I've been in times during my life where I was working 2 and 3 jobs at a time, and one of them was a full-time fucking job. I've been there.
Some of our full-time teachers in this country have to have part-time jobs. They went to fucking college. They have a degree. They're teaching our kids.
A lot of them got a master's. These are not people who just kind of decided, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, or even if they did, like if they're, daycare workers or whatever, pay these people. They're caring for children.
But the point is, these people are not making enough money in the plebe lands here in the United States. The plebes in the United States are not making enough money.
The plebes everywhere are not making enough money. Was there anything about the book that you did not like?
No, I loved all 3 books. I do think there were some things that made me uncomfortable.
Like?
There was definitely a lot of porn in the books, and we all know how I feel about porn. I don't like it. I do think it was really relevant to the story. It wasn't that it was gratuitous porn thrown in to make the book more sexy. It was it was basically being a trafficked child, what it
Yeah.
is to be a trafficked child in the United States and other countries.
Mhm.
Margaret Atwood's from Canada, but I feel like these stories are about the US. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, same, same.
The porn that Jimmy and Crake decided to watch all the time, like they remind me of like the privileged white American boy who's coming home from school,
Yep.
lots of snacks available. Their parents are busy working, so they're off. They're not involved. They have
Mhm.
access to pot.
Everything.
Yeah, access to everything. They have access to money. They have access to pot. They have access to porn. They're playing video games like crazy. They're not really, I mean, I can't really say if they're challenged in school, but there's like not
I
really.
don't think they were. Like, because there are passages where Jimmy talks about being bored at school, that he's really good at, that he's smart, but he's bored.
I also feel like they were trying to, for a while, they were trying to push Jimmy into an academic pathway that wasn't suitable for him.
Right, right. The school that he ended up going to, the Martha Graham school,
Right.
that wasn't where he should have been, because I mean,
Exactly.
not to say that
So,
the kids
but,
at the Martha Graham school weren't smart. But it's a different skill set.
and I feel like that also is very reminiscent of what happens in our culture.
Mhm.
And maybe with young, white, affluent American boys, and maybe this is why these boys are having so much trouble.
Mhm.
If they're from an affluent family whose parents aren't paying attention and they're slipping through the crack holes at school because they are smart, so they're not
Mhm.
failing anything, but they're not
Right.
really excelling at anything either.
Mhm.
And you're smoking pot every day after school and you're playing around with porn and video games and blah 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 blah. Not that any of this stuff taking separately are horrible things, but you put it all together as, and his mother left.
You also have that Jimmy and Glenn being Craig, have no real connection with other people.
They don't.
They have a connection with each other, but even that is not the most
No, they're mostly just
significant.
hanging.
It's very superficial connection.
Yeah, they're mostly just hanging together because that's what was available to them.
Mhm.
And maybe that is another brilliance of this book, because maybe that does speak to what is going on with some young men in this culture.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
hadn't thought about that until just this moment, really. So there wasn't anything I didn't like per se. There were a lot of things that I felt very uncomfortable
Mhm.
about the
Mhm.
realities of our society. I felt
Yeah.
uncomfortable about a lot of things. How about you? Is there anything you didn't like?
I honestly don't think there was anything in this book that I did not like.
Yeah, I don't think me either.
Yeah, Jimmy would he was kind of, a dick to women, and he would say stuff, but I'm like, given what we know about that character, that made sense.
I actually like that she wrote his character that way and she
Mhm.
talked about it, because again, I am the type of person that thinks, oh, they don't really think like that. They're not trying to manipulate me. Oh, people are actually like this.
Mhm.
I'm really waking up this last year
Mhm.
to, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yep.
When people tell you, and I realize that they tell you who they are,
Mhm. Mhm.
believe them. In my
Yep.
head, someone's telling me, like, this is one, past boyfriend once said to me, I don't think I'm as good of a guy as you think I am.
Oh,
I should have been like,
damn!
okay, bye. But it's,
He's leaving.
this was years ago. But instead I was like, no, no, you're a good guy. It's gonna be but no,
You're just down on yourself. I can make you feel better. Now that I think about it, I've probably been
you
in a similar situation at least 2 or 3 times.
I mean, we were socialized,
Mhm.
so I'm not gonna be mad at myself. I was socialized to take care
Mhm.
of those young men.
Yep.
That
I can
shit
make
is
them happy.
that shit is over.
Yeah.
And when they tell you, listen.
Yep.
They're gonna tell you exactly who they are. And Jimmy does. You hear his thoughts and he tells you, like, Jimmy's the hero of the story, but he ain't all that.
He's a complicated hero, man.
Like, he ain't all that.
Right. Yeah. No, he is not perfect.
Nobody
He is not perfect.
and
He's not a savior.
And that also is the beauty of her writing, because they are very complex people.
Mm-hmm.
Had Jimmy's mom not left when he was a child, Jimmy might have been different. Had Jimmy not have ran into Crake to be his best friend, Jimmy might have been different. Had his dad not been off boffing the secretary, no, she wasn't a secretary.
Well, his
lab partner,
assistant, his lab partner, yeah.
Things might have been different if someone was home when they got home from school and they weren't like watching porn all afternoon.
Yeah.
Things might have been different. But when Jimmy tells me who he is, I now know to listen.
Yep.
And that doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't change through the 3 books.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. But I'm glad to know that it doesn't, because Margaret Atwood isn't like, I'm going to make people love him and he's going to be this great savior at the end.
I mean, he evolves as a character, as a normal character, but he doesn't become someone who's not Jimmy.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like Trump is never going to become someone who's not Trump. Oh, wait.
That is so very true.
Jimmy's not Trump. Trump is Crake. I'm getting all confused.
Well, yeah. But still. And Trump isn't as smart as Crake.
Actually, I see Elon Musk more like Crake.
Oh.
Like, don't they have similar characters? Like, Trump and Crake are not really the same, because Crake is not showy like that.
Right.
More like Elon Musk. I'm the really smart guy. I'm going to change the world.
I know everything.
Yeah. It's Elon Musk and Crake are very similar.
That is very fair. And I had not thought about that.
And Elon is working for Trump and Crake is working for, what's the name of the company?
Rejuvenescence.
Yeah. Doing Bliss Plus and
God only knows whatever else.
Bliss Plus is like your space
Viagra.
Spaceship X.
Oh, yes. No, I think SpaceX is somebody else.
Oh, okay. I
think SpaceX is Bezos. I think.
Oh, that's right.
But I could be getting. They both have.
Isn't Elon going off somewhere too?
Yeah, he's got a whole space thing, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I mixed it up.
Did you see him in the inauguration when he was like somebody's talking and he was like off in fucking space?
He's like fucking weirdo.
I mean, who knows? I hardly know a thing about the man. But his mannerisms and the way he speaks and talks, that reminded me of Crake.
Yeah. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. This book, like the first, I don't know, maybe the first 10, 20 pages, I was like, what's going on? Why is this guy called Snowman? What's going on? And then I don't remember what it was that hooked me, but then I was like, oh damn. And then I was like, I was in.
I think what hooked me is very early in the book, you find him with the Crakers, and the Crakers are like this new evolution of human beings.
Yeah, but they're basically like children. They're very, very naive. And
they're talking to Jimmy, who's now Snowman. And Snowman is making up shit. He's making up
this lore about Crake. He's
making up their god.
Yeah.
Right? He's making up their, why does the sun rise? He's making up their god. And that drew me in like, oh, he's fucking creating religion for...
He's creating lore.
Yeah.
For the Crakers.
That's what drew me in.
Oh, and then I guess I can't talk about it without giving stuff away, but...
Go ahead, do it.
Essentially, so when he comes back to the Crakers, he goes off to get supplies and whatnot, and he comes back, they have this basically, this thing in effigy, basically, of him that they're like singing to, right, to bring him back. So he will hear them and he's like, oh shit. And my thought was like, oh hell, is Margaret Atwood saying that basically religion is going to grab you regardless of how new a human you are?
I think that, yes, I think that what she is saying in a way is that we all search for meaning and purpose.
Ah,
Like,
that's a much better way to put it.
like we all, I ask, like, I ask myself, like, why am I in this body? Like,
Mm,
what happens after death?
mm-hmm.
What's happening when I'm dreaming at night?
Yeah,
Like we all search for meaning,
yeah.
and then also for purpose. Like, where do I fit into this world? How do I fit
Mm-hmm.
into it?
Mm-hmm.
And religion, I mean, some people do religion really well.
Mm-hmm.
They wear
Mm-hmm.
it well. It's beautiful. They care about people, they love people, they are generous, they're kind.
They find belonging and empathy
Yeah, some
in
people
it.
wear it really, really well, and then other people use it as a tool for power.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then of course there's a lot
There's
in
a whole
between that. There's a
spectrum in
whole
between.
spectrum in between that.
Yeah.
But Jimmy almost does it because he can.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people are asking him questions and he doesn't have answers for them. He can't tell them that he's the only surviving human, that he blew up the world. I mean, he didn't blow up the world, but that the world
That
is,
Crake did.
yeah, that the world is over, and that you guys are the new people, and you're ever always gonna be like a child. And he has
Have
to,
fun.
and he sort of gets himself in trouble by, he just starts talking, and then all of a sudden he realizes he's creating this lore.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time he gets in trouble, he has to remember everything that he made up.
Mm-hmm.
To remember it every time because they hold him to every word of it.
Yep. Yep.
Which is sort of, is that like the Bible? People
Yeah.
hold you to every word of it?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah,
But
that
then
makes
there's
sense.
but then there's so many translations of the Bible anyway, so who
Uh-huh.
knows
But
what
if you only know one translation, if you're not allowed to explore any other translations.
or interpretations. And the
Mm-hmm.
Crakers don't really have the ability to do the critical thinking of the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
They're just taking that
They're just
story
absorbing it.
as that is that's it.
Well, but that makes sense though, because they're essentially children.
Yes.
And I mean, granted, again, I don't have children, but I've been a child. And children typically, up until a certain age, believe what you tell them.
Yeah. Everything their parents tell them. Their parents
Mm-hmm.
are like the authority on everything.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, Snowman is kind of like their parent.
He is their caregiver for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What a great story. Any final thoughts?
I will say that I may not have come across this book had it not been for us doing our banned book series. Regardless, I love Margaret Atwood, so maybe I would have, but maybe not. But I am so grateful for the ability to think for myself and to have access to books and to think critically about what I read and to discuss these books with you,
It's
because I
fun.
think it is fun. And I think part of reading, part of the education of reading is being able to talk to other people about it. And so I think that's incredibly important. And so I'm really grateful for Margaret Atwood for continuing to write this kind of stuff and having such a long library of things that she has written. So thank you, Margaret Atwood.
What a vivid imagination writer. Like,
Hmm.
how do you even come up with it?
Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
Just realizing what an impact an extremist ideology can have on society if we're
Hmm.
not paying attention. Snowman probably knew, or Jimmy at the time, probably knew more about it than anyone else about the
Hmm.
potential, and just didn't really believe it would happen. And I
Right.
feel like we are kind of at that point in history right now. A lot of us are like, what could happen? I mean, we saw
Yeah.
our president in the first day in office sign over 100 bills that may or may not come to pass. Just because he signed them doesn't mean they hold any weight. But I feel like in some ways we're all Jimmy at this point.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with that information?
Right.
I'm trying to pay attention without paying too much attention.
Right.
Without being sucked into the Instagram, Facebook hole of despair.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I did that in the last pregnancy, presidency. In the last presidency. And I don't want everything that comes out of that man's mouth to make me unhappy. And at the same point, when I need to stand up, I want to be ready to. Like, I don't really think Jimmy was ready to. He sort of let it. I mean, he was. We can be complacent by not. I don't want to be complacent. Jimmy was kind of complacent.
Right.
But did he even know he was being complacent?
No, he was just living his life.
That's the fear.
He was just living his life. Yeah.
That's the fear. Like, how do we know when we've hit that moment? And also, what can we actually do about it?
Well, first, the fact that we're asking these questions and we're interrogating the issue and we're thinking this through. I mean, that's the first step, right? If you don't have access to information that allows you to think critically and creatively about a situation that very well could happen, that's doing you a disservice. So people banning these books and restricting kids' access to this book is a fucking crime. I'm not saying necessarily like a 10-year-old would read this and get it.
No.
Some 10-year-olds could. Yeah, absolutely. I think some could. But like 12 or 14, 16? Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely high school kids could take this book in. Definitely.
Absolutely.
But it mentions some sex and.
Well, damn. I mean, sex is everywhere. Sex is in our marketing, for fuck's sake. I mean, do you know what I mean? So people who are like,
it's okay if sex sells. We just don't want to talk about it in literature in conjunction with political agendas.
Yeah, how dare.
It's okay if somebody's going to buy a car from it.
If somebody's going to buy a Tesla.
A Tesla. No. We got 10 more books. That's number 2, right? So we've got 10 more of the series. This has been fascinating. I think it's going to get even better. It's been fun. And let's keep reading.
Yep. Keep reading, people. Listeners, let us know what you think about the book. If you've read it, let us know. If you haven't read it yet, but you plan on it, let us know why you're going to pick it up. Or if you're just like, look, I'm not picking that shit up. Let us know that too. I'd be interested to know why you're like, hey, read that book. I kind of want to know. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Raquel. Bye, listeners.
Bye.
Give us a 5-star review, please.
5, please.
Thumbs up.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend.
Or you could leave us a comment and a 5-star review, or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, everybody.